The alien warship floated in the endless dark of space, its towers glowing with strange blue lights. Inside, hundreds of alien warriors trained, their weapons clashing and their voices echoing like thunder. Humans were rare here, smaller and weaker in the eyes of the great warriors, but one human boy had been brought as a guest, almost like a joke to the aliens. His name was Daniel, a young man from Earth, not tall, not strong, but with steady eyes that never looked away. The aliens laughed at him when he entered the training hall, his thin body and plain clothes making him look like a child among giants. Among the warriors stood Kayla, a tall alien girl with silver skin and sharp eyes, known for her unmatched strength. She carried a massive battle mace, a weapon so heavy that even many alien men could not lift it for long. Kayla smirked when she saw Daniel standing there. She whispered to her friends, "Let us see how fragile the human really is." With a grin, she stepped forward and held out her mace to him. Her voice rang across the hall. "Here, human, try to hold this weapon, or does it crush you already?" The crowd laughed, their deep voices shaking the walls. Daniel looked at the mace, the weapon almost as tall as him, covered in glowing runes, its head made of dense black metal. He knew it was a trick, a test meant only to humiliate him, but something inside told him to accept. Slowly, he reached out and wrapped both hands around the long handle. The moment his fingers closed on the weapon, Kyla's smile widened. She expected him to drop it instantly, to fall to his knees from the impossible weight. But Daniel gritted his teeth, his arms shaking as he pulled the mace closer. The weapon was heavier than anything he had ever held. His muscles burned, his breath caught, but he did not let go. The laughter in the hall turned into silence. Every alien eye widened as the small human stood firm, gripping the weapon like his life depended on it. Sweat ran down his forehead. His arms trembled like branches in a storm. Yet the mace did not fall. Kyla blinked, her mocking smile fading, her friends staring at her in shock. Tradition stirred. In the minds of the aliens, for centuries they had followed an unbroken law. Whoever accepted a warrior's weapon must face the trial of strength. It was no game, no show. It was a sacred custom that even the Council of Elders could not ignore. And now a human had done what no alien expected. Daniel's legs trembled, but his grip grew tighter. He whispered to himself, "I won't let them see me fail. Not now." The silence was broken by a deep voice from the hall's shadows. It was one of the council guardians, towering in dark armor. By tradition, the human must be tested. Gasps filled the chamber. Kayla looked at Daniel with wide eyes, her joke suddenly turned into something serious. She had not meant for this, yet tradition gave her no choice. She stepped back slowly, her gaze fixed on the strange human who now stood as more than a joke. Daniel lowered the mace just enough to rest against the ground, still holding it tightly. He felt his arms ache, his chest heave, but inside he felt something strange, pride. For the first time since arriving on this ship, he had forced the aliens to see him, not as weak, but as someone who would not bow. The guardian's voice echoed. "The trial begins at dawn. He will lie. Face the test of the arena." The alien crowd erupted, some in laughter, some in disbelief, others in angry shouts. Kayla's heart pounded. She had wanted only to mock, but now she had given her weapon, and that meant the human was tied to her by tradition. If he failed, it would shame her. If he survived, it would change everything. Daniel looked at the glowing runes on the mace, his hands still shaking but firm. He had no idea what kind of trial awaited him, no idea what alien beasts or warriors he might face, but one thought stayed in his mind. "They think I am weak, they think I will fall, but I will show them what a human can do." As the hall emptied with murmurs and arguments, Kayla stood at the edge watching him. For the first time in her life, she was unsure. The human had not broken, had not fled. He had held the weapon of warriors, and now, by tradition, he had become part of their story. The heavy mace glowed, faintly in his grip as if it too had chosen him. Daniel straightened his back, pain coursing through his arms, but his eyes burning with fire. The challenge had begun, and the galaxy would soon know the strength of a human. The night before the trial was long and heavy. Daniel sat alone in the small quarters given to him, the alien mace resting beside him like a sleeping beast. His arms ached from holding it, but he refused to let go of it even in rest. He knew tomorrow was not just a test. It was survival, respect, and maybe his only chance to prove humans were not weak. The ship's great halls were filled with whispers. Aliens of every rank talked about the strange human who had dared to grip Kayla's weapon. Some laughed, saying he would die before the first strike in the arena. Others whispered that perhaps humans were not as fragile as they thought, and Kayla herself lay awake, her thoughts torn. She had offered the mace as a joke, but now the human's courage was tied to her own honor. When dawn came, the arena glowed with fire and banners. Thousands of alien warriors filled the stands, their roars shaking the air. This was not a small trial, this was a sacred tradition watched by the entire ship. The trial of strength was designed to break even the strongest of their kind, and yet it was a human who now stood at the gate, holding the massive mace with trembling arms but steady eyes. The guardian of the arena raised his voice. By tradition, this human has taken the weapon of Kayla, warrior of our people. By tradition, he must prove his worth in the trial of strength. The crowd roared, some in excitement, others in cruel joy. Daniel felt the vibration in his chest, but he did not flinch. He walked forward into the arena, his boots echoing against the stone floor. The gate behind him closed with a heavy crash. Another gate opened at the far end, and the sound of chains rattled through the air. From the shadows a beast emerged. It was massive, with 4 legs like pillars, scales of black iron and eyes burning red like fire. Its jaws snapped, dripping with smoke. Its roar made the air tremble. The aliens cheered, for this was the beast that had crushed many warriors before. Daniel tightened his grip on the mace, his heart racing. The weapon was almost too heavy to swing, but he planted his feet and watched the creature carefully. He remembered the words of his father back on Earth. Strength is not in the arms, alone, but in the mind. He knew he could not match the beast's power, but maybe he could outthink it. The beast charged, the ground shaking under its weight. Daniel rolled to the side, barely escaping the crushing stomp of its claws. The crowd gasped, expecting him to be crushed already. He swung the mace with both hands, striking the beast's leg. The sound was like thunder. The creature staggered for a moment but did not fall. Pain shot through Daniel's arms, the impact almost breaking his grip. But he held on, his teeth clenched, his eyes burning with determination. The beast roared and swung its tail, smashing Daniel against the stone wall. He groaned, blood on his lip, his ribs aching, but he rose again, refusing to stay down. Kayla watched from the stands, her hands tight on the railing. She whispered under her breath, "Get up, human, do not fall now." Her friends laughed at her worry, but her eyes stayed fixed on Daniel. Something about him pulled at her, a fire she had not seen even in her own people. Daniel wiped the blood from his mouth and faced the beast again. This time he did not rush. He studied. He noticed the beast's scales were thick everywhere, except the underbelly when it reared to roar. His mind worked quickly, his heart pounding. He thought, "That is the weak point, that is where I must strike." The beast charged again, faster now. Daniel waited until the last second, his feet steady, then he threw himself to the side and swung the mace upward with all his strength. The weapon struck the exposed belly, the runes glowing with strange light as metal met flesh. The beast screamed, stumbling in pain, blood spilling across the floor. The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in awe. Daniel fell to his knees, his arms shaking like fire, but he refused to drop the mace. The beast turned, furious, and struck him with its claw, sending him rolling across the arena. Dust filled his mouth, his vision blurred, yet his grip on the mace never loosened. Slowly, painfully, he stood again, one arm almost useless, his breath ragged. But his eyes stayed fixed on the beast. He whispered to himself, "I will not break. I will not fall." With a final roar, the beast lunged, its jaws wide. Daniel raised the mace, bracing his body. The impact shook the arena as he brought the weapon down on its skull. Silence followed. The beast shuddered, then collapsed, its body shaking the ground. Daniel stood over it, his arms bloody, his chest heaving. the mace glowing faintly in his grip. The crowd roared, the sound shaking the entire ship. Some cheered in respect, others shouted in anger, but none could deny what they had seen. The guardian of the arena stepped forward, his deep voice echoing. "The human has passed the first test of the trial." Daniel dropped to one knee, exhausted but still holding the weapon. Kayla stared at him, her heart racing. The joke she had played had turned into something greater. The human had survived. The trial of strength, and now the real story was only beginning. The arena floor was stained with dust and blood. Daniel stood with the heavy mace in his grip, his body shaking, his breath ragged, yet his eyes still sharp. The beast that had fallen lay on the ground, silent, its massive body unmoving. The crowd of aliens roared, some cheering, others shouting in disbelief. They had seen humans as weak creatures, yet this one had stood against the impossible and survived. Kayla's heart beat fast as she watched. From the stands, she had given him the weapon as a joke. But now her honor was tied to his survival, and against all odds, he had fought like a warrior. But even as the crowd shouted, the ground beneath the beast's body began to tremble. A deep sound echoed, low and unnatural. Daniel's tired eyes widened as the beast twitched, its body pulsing with strange energy. Its wounds glowed with red light, its broken scales reforming. The crowd gasped, then began to cheer louder. The guardian of the arena raised his hand, his voice booming. "The trial is not finished. The beast has awakened to its true form." Daniel staggered back, his chest burning, his ribs aching. The creature rose again, taller, stronger, its body swelling with fury. Its 2 eyes became 4. Its tail split into whips lined with blades. It roared so loud that the stone walls shook, sending waves of fear even through hardened alien warriors. Daniel gripped the mace tighter. Though his arms screamed with pain, he whispered to himself, "I will not give up, not here, not now." The beast charged, faster than before, its tail lashing like a storm of knives. Daniel rolled to the side, barely avoiding the strike, the wind of it cutting his cheek. The crowd cheered, their voices thunderous, their excitement burning like fire. Kayla leaned forward, her silver eyes wide. She muttered, "No, human, you cannot face this alone." But she knew tradition bound her. She could not enter the arena. She could only watch as Daniel stood against death itself. The beast struck again, its claws tearing through stone. Daniel swung the mace, hitting its leg, but the blow barely slowed it. The force of the strike sent Daniel stumbling back, his arms nearly breaking from the impact. The mace was powerful, but his body was fragile compared to the monster. His vision blurred, but his mind stayed sharp. He remembered his father's voice again, the same words he had lived by. "Think. Do not only strike. Use the enemy's strength against it." He watched the beast's movements, searching for rhythm, for weakness, and then he saw it. Every time it attacked with its tail, its chest opened slightly, exposing a pulsing core glowing beneath the scales. Daniel knew that was the key, but reaching it would mean standing face to face with the monster's fangs. He steadied his breath, ignoring the pain, and whispered, "This is the only chance." The beast roared and lunged, its 4 eyes burning, its claws like blades. Daniel ran toward it instead of away, shocking the crowd. He slid under its body as the mace's runes glowed. With all his strength, he struck upward, slamming the weapon against the glowing chest. The explosion of sound shook the entire arena. The beast screamed, a terrible sound of rage and pain. Blood and light burst from its chest as it staggered, crashing into the wall. The ground split beneath its weight, sending dust and stone flying. Daniel coughed, his body trembling, his arms numb from the strike. But he did not fall. He stood tall, his grip on the mace unbroken. The crowd erupted, thousands of voices shouting, "Human, human, human." For the first time in history, they were not mocking. They were cheering, but the beast was not done. With its last strength, it whipped its tail, catching Daniel across the arena. He crashed hard against the stone, pain exploding through his body, his vision fading. The crowd gasped, many expecting him to stay down this time. Kayla's chest tightened, her hands clenched. She whispered, "Please rise again," though she did not know why she cared so much. Her people laughed at weakness, but what she saw in Daniel was not weakness. It was something different, something unshakable. Slowly, Daniel pushed himself up, his body broken but his spirit alive. He used the mace to support himself, blood dripping from his lip, his arms trembling. He stared at the beast, which still struggled to stand. Its chest, glowing faintly, its strength fading but not gone, he whispered. One last strike. Summoning every ounce of will, Daniel charged. The crowd rose to their feet, roaring like thunder. The beast lifted its head, jaws wide, but Daniel leaped, swinging the mace with all the power left in his soul. The weapon struck the glowing chest once more, harder than before. The beast screamed, its body bursting with light, then collapsed for the final time. Silence fell. The massive creature lay still, smoke rising from its broken body. Daniel stood over it, his knees weak, his arms nearly useless, but the mace still in his grip. The arena erupted with cheers, chants, and cries. The human had not only survived, he had conquered the beast. Kayla's lips curved into a smile, her heart pounding. She whispered to herself, "You are no joke, human. You are something far greater." The guardian of the arena lifted his hand, his voice echoing through the chamber. The human has completed the beast fight. Tradition binds him now as warrior. Daniel looked up at the endless stands, his body broken but his spirit burning. Brighter than ever, he thought. They will remember this day. They will remember that a human stood against the impossible. And deep within the alien crowd, whispers began, whispers that this human might change everything. The arena floor still smoked from the beast's final fall. Daniel stood weakly, his arms shaking, his chest burning with pain. But his grip on the heavy mace had not loosened. The alien crowd's roar shook the ship, their voices a storm of shock, disbelief, and awe. A human, something they once called weak, had faced their sacred trial and lived. Kayla stood frozen at the edge of the stands, her silver eyes locked on Daniel. She had expected him to fall, to be broken in moments, yet here he stood, bloody and bruised but alive. Her heart raced not with fear but with something new, something she did not yet understand. The joke she had started had now become legend, and tradition tied her fate to his. The guardian of the arena raised his hand, calling for silence. By tradition, the human has completed the beast fight, yet the trial is not over. The crowd hushed, their eyes blazing with anticipation. The guardian's voice boomed. The trial of strength ends only when the warrior proves mastery, not only over beast but over himself. Daniel's knees nearly gave out, his body begging for rest, but he clenched his teeth and stood taller. Inside, he thought, if I fall now, they will call it luck, not strength. I must finish this. Suddenly, the arena floor shifted, hidden gears grinding as the stones split apart. From beneath rose tall pillars glowing with alien energy. Each pillar held traps, blades, fire, shifting platforms, designed not to test power, but endurance and will. The final test had begun, the beast was gone. But now the arena itself was alive. A wall of fire shot across his path and sharp metal spikes rose from the ground. Daniel gripped the mace tighter, his hands bleeding, his breath shallow. He whispered, "I can do this," and stepped forward. The crowd leaned in, their roars replaced with silence. Every alien warrior knew this part of the trial broke even their own kind. It was a test not of muscle, but of heart, and many had failed. Could a human succeed where so many aliens had fallen? Daniel ducked under spinning blades, his legs burning as he pushed forward. He rolled across hot stone, his skin searing but his grip still tight on the mace. The weight of the weapon slowed him, yet he refused to abandon it. He thought, if I let it go, I let them win, and I let myself die. A platform shook beneath his feet, threatening to drop him into a pit below. He leapt with what little strength he had, slamming onto the next stone, his body aching. Every breath felt like fire. His ribs screamed, but he kept moving. Step by step, he forced himself through, the crowd watching in stunned silence. Kyla's heart pounded as she leaned forward. She whispered, "Do not stop. Human, do not stop." She did not understand why she cared so deeply, but she could not look away. This human was rewriting what strength meant, even for her people. Finally, Daniel reached the last challenge, a wall of fire that burned brighter than the sun, tall and endless. The only way through was forward, and the mace weighed heavier than ever in his hands. His legs trembled, his lungs screamed, but he raised the weapon and whispered, "If this is where I will fall fighting." With a roar, he ran into the flames. The fire licked his skin, burning his clothes, but he shielded himself with the mace. The glowing runes on the weapon pulsed brighter, as if feeding on his will. Step by step, he pushed through the fire until he burst out the other side. He fell to his knees, smoke rising from his body, his breath ragged but the mace still in his grip. The arena fell silent for a long moment, the silence louder than any roar. Then the stands erupted, thousands of voices crying out together. They had no choice but to accept it. The human had passed the full trial. The guardian's voice thundered, "By law, by blood, by tradition, the human is now warrior." Kayla felt her chest tighten as those words echoed. She had given him the weapon, and now he was bound to her clan, tied to her honor. It was no longer a game, it was destiny. Daniel looked up, his body broken but his spirit burning bright. He thought, "I have survived, but this is only the beginning." His eyes met Kayla's across the arena, and for a brief moment, the alien girl and the human boy shared a silent understanding. Something new had begun between them, something neither could yet name. The council of elders sat in the shadows, their faces dark. They whispered among themselves, displeased with what had happened. A human as warrior threatened their order, their pride, their traditions. One elder growled, "This cannot stand. The human must be tested again." But the law of tradition was clear, and even the elders could not break it. For now Daniel had won. The crowd cheered his name, Kayla stood in awe, and the galaxy itself seemed to shift. The trial was complete, but the true turning point had only just begun. The arena was empty now, the cheers of the crowd fading into the endless corridors of the warship. Daniel lay in a resting chamber, his wounds wrapped, his body aching from fire and battle. The heavy mace rested by his side, glowing faintly as though it had accepted him. For the first time since leaving Earth, he felt something new. Not weakness, not fear, but pride. But outside his chamber, the ship was not quiet. The warriors of the alien clans argued loudly in the great hall. Some shouted that tradition had been honored, that the human had proven himself. Others spat in anger, calling it an insult that a fragile creature could hold their title. At the center of the hall, the council of elders sat in shadow. Their voices calm but sharp as knives. One elder spoke, his tone cold. "Tradition binds us, yes, but tradition can be twisted. This human must not rise higher." Another elder answered, "The people cheer for him if we deny what they saw. We break our own laws." Kayla stood at the edge of the council chamber, her heart beating fast. She had spoken nothing since the trial, but now the voices against Daniel grew louder. Finally, she stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing. "By our laws, he is warrior," she said firmly, "and if we reject him, we shame our own honor." The hall grew silent, many shocked that Kayla defended a human. One elder narrowed his eyes, his voice like poison. "You gave him the weapon and now your bloodline is tied to his fate. Is that why you defend him?" Kayla did not flinch. "I defend truth, not weakness. He has earned what no one believed possible." Murmurs filled the chamber, half the council frowning, half the warriors nodding. The debate grew hotter, the tension thick like smoke. At last, the eldest of them all spoke, his voice heavy with age. "Tradition has been followed, but a greater test must come. If the human survives again, then none can deny him." Daniel, still weak, was summoned before them. He walked slowly into the great hall, the weight of many alien eyes pressing down on him. His arms were bound with bandages, but his grip on the mace was steady. He stood tall, not as a boy, but as a warrior who had faced fire and beast. The eldest elder's voice boomed, "Human, you have survived what should have killed you, but some still doubt. You will face one more test, a duel of honor, against one of our own. The hall echoed with gasps, warriors whispering in excitement. A duel was no game. It was death or glory. Daniel's heart pounded, but his voice was calm. "If this is your way, then I will not run. I will face whoever stands before me." The warriors roared, some cheering his courage, others eager to see him broken. From the crowd, a tall figure stepped forward. It was Rakar, a rival warrior, known for his cruelty. His armor black as night, his weapons sharp and hidden. He bowed mockingly before the council, his lips curling in a grin. "I will face the human, and I will show that his victory was nothing but luck." The hall erupted, half in cheers, half in unease. Kayla's fists clenched at her sides. Her heart twisting with fear, she knew Rakar well. He fought with dishonor, using hidden blades and tricks. Her eyes darted to Daniel, but he stood firm, showing no fear. That night the ship buzzed with rumor and excitement. Every alien spoke of the coming duel. The human against Rakar, honor against mockery. Some placed bets, others prayed. For the first time in history, the fate of a human shook the balance of their traditions. Daniel sat in silence in his chamber, his body tired but his spirit alive. He looked at the mace, its runes glowing faintly, and whispered, "I don't know why you chose me, but I will not let go." He thought of Earth, of how humans had always been underestimated. He thought, "If I fall as proof that humans fight to the last breath." Kayla entered quietly, her steps soft, her eyes serious. She said nothing, at first only looked at him, at the bandages on his arms, at the fire still burning in his gaze. Finally she spoke. "You should not fight him. Rakar is cruel. He will not stop until you are broken." Daniel looked up at her, his voice steady. "Then I will not stop either." For a long moment she said nothing, then her lips curved into the faintest smile. "You are either the bravest fool I have ever seen or the strongest," she whispered. Before leaving, she added, "Win, human, for if you fall, they will take everything from you. And from me." When she was gone, Daniel closed his eyes. The weight of what was coming pressed on him, but he did not fear it. In his heart, he knew this was no longer only about survival. It was about proving that humans had a place in the stars. The council's decision was final. The duel was set. The arena would once again be filled, the crowd hungry for blood. And in the shadows the elders whispered, some hoping for his death, others fearing what his victory might mean. The politics of the aliens were now tied to him, a single human with a mace too heavy for his kind. As Daniel lay back, he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I fight not just for me, but for every human who will come after." And far beyond the walls of the warship, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as though watching, waiting. The duel would not just decide Daniel's fate. It would decide whether humans would rise or be crushed forever. The arena burned with light, banners rising high as thousands of alien warriors filled the stands. The duel of honor was no small event. It was tradition, sacred and deadly. Every seat was taken, every eye fixed on the center where two figures would soon clash. One was Rakar, the dark warrior, tall and cruel, known for breaking bones and rules alike. The other was Daniel, a human scarred and weary but holding the heavy mace with steady hands. The council elders sat in the shadows above, their voices hushed but sharp. One elder whispered, "If he falls, it ends here. Humans will remain weak in our eyes." Another replied, "But if he wins, we cannot deny him. Tradition will bind us all." Their eyes glowed with unease, for they had not expected the human to survive this long. Kayla stood among the warriors, her silver eyes locked on Daniel. She wanted to call out, to warn him, but she could not. Tradition silenced her. The duel was sacred, and once it began, no one could interfere. Still, her heart burned with fear and something else. Hope. The guardian raised his arm, his voice thundered. "By tradition, a warrior's worth will be decided by combat, by strength, by honor." The crowd roared, their voices like thunder in the great halls. The gate opened, and Rakar stepped into the arena, his armor black and shining with crimson light. In his hands were twin blades, curved and sharp, weapons far faster than Daniel's heavy mace. His smile was cruel as he pointed a blade at Daniel. "Tonight, human, you will learn that luck cannot save you twice." Daniel stepped forward slowly, his body still aching from the beast fight, but his spirit unbroken. The mace glowed faintly, in his grip runes shimmering as if alive. He said nothing, his silence stronger than words. The guardian dropped his arm, and the duel began. Rakar moved first, fast as lightning, his blades slashing with deadly precision. Daniel blocked with the mace, sparks flying as steel met enchanted metal. The force of the strikes pushed him back, his arms burning, his feet sliding across stone. The crowd cheered wildly, most expecting the human to fall within moments, but Daniel did not fall. He shifted, dodged, using the mace not only as a weapon but as a shield. Rakar's speed was great, but his fury made him reckless. Daniel's eyes watched carefully, searching for weakness, remembering Earth's lessons, patience, strategy, timing. The fight raged across the arena, the clash of weapons echoing like thunder. Rakar laughed cruelly. "You fight like prey, human, always running, always blocking. Show me your strength." Daniel gritted his teeth, replying only with a sudden strike. The mace smashed into Rakar's armor, sending him stumbling back for the first time. The crowd gasped, their voices rising in shock. Kayla's heart leapt, her lips curling into a small smile. But Rakar's grin only widened, blood dripping from his mouth. He snarled, "Good, now I will break you properly." With a sudden motion, he twisted his wrist, and hidden blades snapped out from his armor. The crowd roared in surprise, many shouting in anger. This was dishonor, this was cheating. But the elders remained silent, their eyes cold. They would not stop him. They wanted the human crushed, even if it broke the spirit of their law. Rakar lunged, his hidden blades flashing. Daniel barely raised the mace in time, the strike grazing his shoulder. Blood flowing, pain shot through him, but he refused to drop the weapon. His eyes narrowed, his heart steady. If he cheats, then I must be smarter, he thought. The duel grew fiercer. Daniel dodging and blocking, his body breaking but his will iron. He used the arena itself, stepping around pillars, forcing Rakar to waste his strikes. The mace swung heavy, each blow slower, but sharper. Rakar laughed less now, his strikes meeting nothing but air or stone. The crowd began to shift, their cheers changing. Some who had mocked now shouted for the human, their voices rising. "Human, human, human," they cried, the sound shaking even the elders. Kayla's chest swelled with pride, her eyes never leaving him. At last, Daniel saw his chance. Rakar rushed forward with both blades raised, his chest unguarded for a heartbeat. Daniel roared, lifting the mace with both hands despite the pain in his arms. He swung down with all his strength, the weapon glowing bright as the runes flared. The impact cracked through the arena. Rakar's armor shattered, the ground beneath him splitting. He fell to his knees, blood pouring, his blades clattering to the floor. The crowd erupted, some screaming in shock, others roaring in triumph. But Rakar was not finished. With fury in his eyes, he pulled a dagger from his belt, striking at Daniel. In desperation, Daniel twisted, the blade cutting across his ribs. But he held firm. With a final strike of the mace, he sent Rakar sprawling to the ground, unconscious and broken. Silence fell over the arena. Every alien eye fixed on the human standing tall, bloodied but unbowed. The guardian raised his arm, his voice shaking the air. "The duel is ended. The human stands as victor." The crowd roared, the sound like the beating of 1,000 war drums. Kayla's heart raced as she whispered, "You did it, Daniel. You truly did it." The elders sat in silence, their plans shattered, their control slipping. Tradition bound them now. They could not deny his victory. They could not erase what the people had seen. Daniel lifted the mace, his voice steady though his body trembled. "I am human," he said, his words echoing across the arena, "and we are stronger than you ever believed." The crowd roared again, chanting, his name rising in waves across the warship. The duel of honor was over, but its echo would shake the stars. The arena was still shaking from the roar of the crowd. Daniel stood in the center, bloodied, bruised, but holding the heavy mace high in his hands. The sound of his victory had spread beyond the walls, through every hall of the great warship. For the first time, a human had not only survived but had won against one of their greatest warriors. The council elders sat silent in their high seats, their eyes burned with anger. Yet they could say nothing. Tradition was clear, the duel had been fought, and the winner was to be honored. To deny it would break their laws, their very identity, and the people would not forgive such betrayal. Kayla rushed forward, her heart racing. Though she could not run into the arena until the guardian gave the word, her silver eyes never left Daniel. She had placed the mace in his hands, expecting him to fail, but he had risen beyond failure. He had carried it with strength, and now, by the old ways, he was more than just a survivor. He was something far greater. The guardian raised his arm, his voice echoing like thunder. By tradition, the one who holds the weapon and survives. The duel shall be given honor equal to the greatest warriors of our kind. The crowd cheered, stamping their feet, their voices calling the human's name. The sound was like fire spreading through dry grass, unstoppable and alive. Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily, but he did not bow his head. He lifted the mace slowly, the runes glowing faintly, and spoke, his voice rough but steady. "I am human," he said, "and I will honor your tradition. But I will also bring my own, because strength is not only in arms, it is in heart, in loyalty, in standing for what is right." The words cut through the noise, a silence falling as thousands listened. He was not just a fighter, he was speaking like a leader. Some elders shifted uneasily, for they had never expected a human to speak with such weight. Even Kayla felt the sting of pride, her chest tight with admiration. Rakar, broken and defeated, was carried out by his allies. His name would not be remembered for his strength, but for his shame. Cheating in the duel had dishonored him, and though the elders had allowed it, the people had seen, the people had judged, and their voices were already turning toward Daniel. The chants grew louder. "Human, human, human." Kayla finally stepped forward, her voice carrying across the arena. "By tradition, the one who holds the mace is bound," she declared, "bound not only to the people but also to the one who gave it." Her words struck like lightning, and the crowd erupted in surprise. Daniel blinked, his mind racing. He realized the truth. When Kayla had handed him the mace, it had not only been a test of strength, it had been a bond, a hidden law, one older than any council. By holding it and proving himself, he had tied his fate to hers. The guardian nodded solemnly. "The human speaks with honor, and the warrior Kayla speaks truth. The bond is sealed." The crowd roared again, some with joy, some with shock, but no one could deny it. Tradition had spoken. Daniel and Kayla were now bound by honor, by law, and by something deeper that neither could yet name. Kayla's heart beat fast, her cheeks warming though she stood tall. Daniel turned his gaze to her, tired but steady. He whispered so only she could hear, "I didn't plan for this." She smiled faintly, replying, "Neither did I, but now, neither of us walks alone." The council elders rose at last, their robes flowing like dark storms. One of them hissed, "This is madness. He is not of our kind. How can we allow this to stand?" But the people shouted them down, their voices stronger than the council's power. Tradition had always been there. Strength and now tradition had chosen the human. The warship's great drums thundered, a signal of acceptance. The bond was official. The human was no longer an outsider. He was part of their story, their future, and their legacy. Even the stars beyond seemed to burn brighter as if bearing witness. Daniel stood taller, though pain still burned through his body. He looked at Kayla and then at the crowd. "I will fight beside you not as your enemy but as your brother, your ally, your family," he said. The words struck deep, and the crowd answered with thunderous approval. Kayla's hand rested lightly on his arm, steadying him as he wavered from exhaustion. Her voice was soft yet firm. "Then let us forge a new tradition together." The people cheered louder, their voices carrying through the halls and into the stars. That night, the warship shone with light. Songs of victory filled the air, not of Rakkar, not of the council, but of the human and the warrior who stood beside him. A new story had been born, one that would not be forgotten. Daniel had arrived as an outsider, a joke, a fragile being. But now, by tradition, he was bound, honored, and remembered as something greater. The human who held the mace had changed everything, and the stars themselves would carry his name.